Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. On the heels of the most challenging wheat crop in more than 50 years, thanks to summer rain, there's optimism as Oklahoma wheat producers shift into decision-making mode, deciding which varieties they'll plant this fall. We begin today with a wheat update. Here's SUNUP's Dave Deacon and Extension Small Grain Specialist Jeff Edwards.
Well, Jeff, there's a lot of producers thinking about this year's wheat crop, and there's different production styles. Let's talk about grain-only wheat.
When we talk about grain-only producers, we can almost divide them into two categories. We have some producers that are maybe on a little bit more productive soil, maybe has a little bit more reliable yield production history, and they're going to push more for yield potential. And a few varieties that those growers might consider would be something like Ruby Lee. Now, Ruby Lee is an excellent grain-only wheat. It's a decent forage wheat as well, but it's not tolerant of low soil pH, and the disease resistance package on Ruby Lee isn't that great, so it's going to need a fungicide most years. And they can also go with some of the varieties that have good disease resistance, but also have very good top-end yield potential, something like Gallagher. WB Cedar is another variety that has very good yield potential in a high production environment. Our other grain-only producers, we have some others that are more of a limited input system, and maybe the production isn't as reliable or consistent, so they're looking at really controlling those inputs. So if I'm in that situation, a few things that I'm going to look at, most likely I'm going to need low soil pH tolerance, and I'm going to need very good disease resistance. So some things that would work in that area would be something like Gallagher, again, has very good disease resistance and tolerance to low soil pH. Our old standby Duster works well in those systems, just a very tough wheat with a very broad area of adaptation. And another variety, as long as the soil pH is about 5.5 or above, that works well in those situations would be Iba. Did very well in our state trials last year. If you look at a variety that performed very well across the entire state, broad area of adaptation, Iba fits that bill, has a very good disease resistance, one of the sons of Duster, and has a good test weight and an improved seed size over Duster.
Okay, let's talk about if we're going to run cattle and then have a grain crop. What are we looking at?
All right, so what we're going to look for there is something that pops out of the ground quickly and makes a lot of forage, high tillering ability and can tolerate the grazing, and something I really like to see in those dual purpose varieties, especially if we're planting early in September, is Hessian fly resistance, because that can really come back to get us if we do not have that resistance. So a couple of go-to varieties, again, we look at Duster. It's kind of my gold standard that I use to compare everything with. Very high tillering ability, forage production. Then you have one of the sons of Duster, Gallagher. It's going to offer improved disease resistance over Duster. It's Hessian fly resistant, just like Duster, and it has acid soil tolerance. Forage production on Gallagher is going to be as good as, if not better than Duster. The only area where maybe it falls a little short, and this comes into play next spring, would be with Gallagher. You're going to need to have the cattle off a good week to 10 days earlier than you would with Duster.
Okay, let's talk about the producer that's only going to run cattle.
If you're just running cattle, we're strictly concerned about forage.
Right.
So we could look at a couple of onless varieties, especially if you're in a graze out system. We have Pete, we have Deliver, and Tam 401. All of those are good choices. Each one of them has a strength over and above the other one. Pete, probably a better fit for southwest Oklahoma. Deliver, maybe a little better fit for northwestern Oklahoma. If you don't have to have the onless characteristic, I'm going to go back to our standard variety, and Duster is just pretty doggone tough to beat because it tillers out well, makes a lot of forage. It's an on variety, but if you're willing to forego the ons or not worry about that, it's pretty tough to beat Duster.
Okay, let's talk about some of what producers in the Panhandle, what wheat varieties they should look at.
Well, you know, we tend to focus in on low soil pH tolerance and everything, and that's such an issue downstate, but in the Panhandle we're the opposite, where we have high soil pH, so that doesn't come into issue as much. Really what we're looking for is something that has good drought tolerance if we're talking about dry land in the Panhandle. Winterhawk is a variety that's done very well. Tam 112, Tam 113, both of those have done well. Iba has done very well in the Panhandle for us, not only dry land, but under irrigated. We had some very, very good irrigated yields of Iba out in the Panhandle this year. So it's one that provides quite a bit of versatility both in dry land and irrigated production in the Oklahoma Panhandle.
Okay, there are producers out there that are just looking to hang on to the sandy soil that they have, maybe planting peanuts in a rotation. What variety would be good for them?
For those producers that are just wanting to hold the ground, really what I want them to do is think of themselves as a forage producer, because that's what they're trying to do, is just make biomass. And for those situations, they need something with a high tillering ability that hops out of the ground quickly and covers the ground quickly. So in that case, we've got our standby, we've got Duster. Gallagher would be a good choice as well, and Fannin, which is an AgriPro variety, would work well in those situations.
Okay, there are producers out there that are holding on to their seed from last year. What's your advice for planting this year, and is there a way that they can introduce some new seed into that?
If you're a farmer saving your own seed to plant back on your own farm, then my recommendation is to never be more than 1 year away from certification. That's a fairly easy way to do a pretty good job of maintaining a seed purity. So let's say I was going to plant Gallagher and wanted to save seed from that. So I would purchase some certified Gallagher this fall and plant it on acreage in a field that was surrounded by maybe saved Gallagher, so it's surrounded by Gallagher, and that way by the time you're into the Gallagher, your combine is pure and you only have Gallagher in the combine. I would add extra nitrogen to that area, and I would most likely treat it with a foliar fungicide to increase seed size. That way you maintain seed purity, and it's a good, just best management practice to have higher quality seed in farmer saved seed. The highest quality is generally going to be certified, but you can get close if you follow those practices.
Okay, all of this will work if we get rain.
If we get rain, and we're going to. The guys at the Mesonet have promised me that this year we will get rain, and it will be better than next. And actually, Al Sutherland signed a document.
Oh, good. Notarized it and everything.
Absolutely. So it's in writing.
Okay. Jeff Edwards, small grain specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet Weather Report. In just a bit, I'll share with you the National Weather Service outlooks that point to a wetter fall. So there is hope we can keep our promise to Jeff Edwards for fall rain for this year's wheat crop. We promised Jeff it would rain. We just didn't say where, when, or by how much. Details, details. Monday night brought some unexpected rain to the state. A rainfall map shows how the storms popped up in scattered areas with some noticeable amounts. Sealing had 1.5 inches. Marshall came in with 76/100ths. Tuesday and Wednesday were warm and windy, not a good combination for plants in August. A map of maximum air temperatures for Wednesday showed that 20 sites hit 100 or more. Wednesday's afternoon wind map at 4:30 showed much of the western third of the state had average wind speeds above 20 miles per hour. Warm, windy days are stressing plants. Bermuda grass at Shannon Springs Park in Chickasha has rapidly turned brown after staying green from June through early August. Checking on the latest U.S. drought monitor, only about 16% of the state remains in the two worst categories of extreme and exceptional drought, the red and maroon colored map areas. That's down from about 50% of the state in those two worst drought categories 3 months ago. Those rains since late May have brought some important drought relief. Unfortunately, rains since August have pretty much evaporated for much of the state. Those are the cream-colored areas on our map of rainfall from August 1st to August 20th. Those areas really stand out when we turn to a map of August rainfall as a percent of normal. The red map areas have had less than 20% of their normal rainfall for August so far. The only areas near normal are those few light, dark, and green spots on our map. Turning to a look at the 3-month outlook from the National Weather Service's Climate Prediction Center for September through November, the expectation is for above average moisture. Oklahoma has a 40% chance of seeing above average rainfall this September through November. Yes, Jeff, we want to keep our promise to you for good rains this fall to get next year's wheat crop off to a great start. That'll make Oklahoma's farmers and cattle both happy. That higher chance of above average rainfall is projected in the U.S. seasonal drought outlook for Oklahoma. In the tan areas, drought is expected to persist but improve. The olive green areas are likely to have enough rainfall that they will no longer be considered in drought. In the western U.S., drought is expected to persist or intensify in California, Oregon, Nevada, and parts of Washington, Idaho, and Utah, the dark brown map areas. That's good news for us, but not so good news for folks to our west. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Mesonet Weather Report.
Joining us now, Daryl Peel, our livestock marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University. Daryl, as we watch the markets these past few weeks, it's easy to think maybe we've started to finally back off those high prices. Where do we really sit?
You know, a couple of times earlier this year we thought the market had topped and it really hadn't, but you know, in the last couple of weeks we have seen the wholesale box beef price and the fed cattle price back down a little bit. It's clearly topped here in the short run, although that's not to say that we couldn't take another run at this before the end of the year. Feeder cattle prices, on the other hand, really haven't dropped very much. They've been a little bit volatile, kind of following some of the volatility in the feeder cattle futures market. So they dropped a little bit one week, but then they're right back up, you know, the next week after that, and really just kind of flattened out, I think, more so. Pretty much holding steady here at essentially record levels.
So what do those prices mean for stocker producers here in the state?
You know, we're getting, you know, towards the time when we can start thinking about planting, you know, wheat for winter forage. Conditions look fairly favorable, and these price levels, you know, they're a little scary because of the overall price level. And I think the sticker shock is there for producers and for lenders in many cases. But when you work through the math of the, you know, the lightweight prices relative to the heavyweight prices, there's actually a very good value of gain in the market right now. You know, typically the value of stocker gain is pretty closely related to feedlot cost of gain, and the feedlot cost of gain is going to go down as we move into this record corn crop we've got coming, and that should put some pressure on this stocker value of gain, and yet right now that's holding pretty well, and it may actually persist for some time before it corrects. So there seems to be a reasonably good opportunity in general for stocker production this fall.
All right, so then what's the right strategy for those producers to look at? What cattle do they buy and how long do they hold them?
Well, I think in terms of, you know, we've got choices about what size of cattle to buy, how much total weight to put on. It depends on your production parameters, how long you know, how much forage you have, how long you want to own them. But in general, I think the market favors, you know, you can buy a wide range of cattle from very lightweight stockers to, you know, something a little bit heavier maybe than we traditionally buy. So you've got flexibility there. You've also got flexibility on how much weight to put on. Basically, the value of gain right now is very good up to some fairly high feeder cattle weights. So you can think about putting, you know, not just 250 or 300 pounds, but up to 400 pounds in some cases on these animals if you buy them very light and own them a long time. So I think there's a lot of flexibility. I guess in general, even though we are at record prices, it looks like there's some potential for these stocker cattle to actually be as strong or stronger this fall, not seeing the seasonal pressure. And so, you know, buying sooner rather than later may actually be a good thing for stocker producers this fall.
Now, what about cow-calf producers? They've really got a lot of options right now.
Well, the cow-calf producer is clearly again in the driver's seat. You know, with these record prices, I don't expect much seasonal pressure on calf prices this fall. So, you know, we're just going to see unprecedented returns for cow-calf producers this fall. And really, you know, there's just not much that can mess that up. Producers certainly should consider, you know, whether they want to sell right off the cow. They can precondition. The value of preconditioning is there because the producers buying those calves clearly have a lot of incentive to pay a little extra and get something that has less death loss risk and sickness risk. So there's lots of options for cow-calf producers, but they're all pretty good at this point.
Nice change of pace, isn't it?
That's right.
All right, Daryl Peel, livestock marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Producers that have fall calving often notice that the fall calving season begins a little sooner than they expected. Many of them will breed cows or heifers to target September 1 as the start of their calving season. And they're going by the gestation table that they see in books that indicate that gestation of cattle is about 283 days. Well, research here at Oklahoma State University has confirmed what many producers have already found out, and that is that cows that gestate in hot weather very likely will have a shorter gestation length and calve a little bit sooner than cows that perhaps would be spring calvers. Work that was done here in about 2004 looked at a set of cows that were to calve in August and compared to counterparts that were bred to calve in October. All of them were bred AI to the same bull, and the same cleanup bull was used with both sets of cows. It was a 2-year study, and what they found was that the cows that were calving in the hot weather, those that were set to calve in August, had a shorter gestation length in the first year of about 6 days compared to their counterparts that calved in October. The second year, it was a little bit shorter at about 4 days difference. Now, as we're thinking about the start of this year's fall calving season, if we're planning on that first calf not coming till September 1, let's don't be fooled, because we know that the average gestation length of these cows that gestate in hot weather is going to be someplace around 4, 5, or 6 days shorter on the average than what we might read in our gestation tables in textbooks. That tells me that now we need to start watching these heifers and cows closely to see if there are those that are going to need some assistance, because we're going to have some that will calve not just 6 days ahead of that September 1, but there'll be some earlier calvers that may be as much as 10 days ahead of what our expected first calving date will be. Let's start watching these cows and heifers now so that we can give the assistance if it's necessary. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Right now, producers are mostly concerned about the supplemental coverage option, which is the new crop insurance program that was authorized in the 2014 Farm Bill. Information for winter wheat for SCO, or the supplemental coverage option, was released a few weeks ago. The deadline to sign up for SCO for winter wheat for 2015 is September 30th. So it's the same deadline that producers would have to purchase crop insurance for their 2015 winter wheat crop, regular crop insurance. Now, a lot of questions have been asked about SCO, what is it, how does it work? It's a supplemental product that is basically an endorsement to a regular insurance policy, so revenue protection or yield protection. So when a producer goes in to sign up for their regular insurance policy, they can let their crop insurance agent know that they want to get SCO on top of it. The way it works is, again, they would buy 2 policies. So let's just say, for example, they have a 70% revenue protection policy. They can get SCO coverage up to 86%. So SCO coverage would be 86 minus 70. If they had a 75% policy, it would be 86 minus 75%. So a slightly lower coverage band. The premium would be a little bit lower. The premiums for SCO are going to be a lot lower than the premiums for traditional crop insurance products. Now, there's a few very important details that producers need to know about SCO and how SCO is combined with commodity programs in the 2014 Farm Bill. Producers who enroll in the ARC, the Ag Risk Coverage Program, on a specific crop and farm number cannot enroll that crop in SCO. However, if they enroll in PLC, the Price Loss Coverage Program, they can enroll that crop in SCO. But sign up for 2014 ARC and PLC has not happened yet. FSA has not released the final rules and regulations. It's anticipated that sign up for those programs would happen later this year or early next year. Okay, so producers need to sign up though in SCO by September 30th for the 2015 crop year. So they have an option for this year only for winter wheat. If they enroll in SCO in September, but then decide later on in the year that they want to enroll that crop in ARC, they can withdraw from SCO and not have to pay a penalty, not have to pay the premium. So if a producer is somewhat interested, thinks that they may possibly want SCO, they need to sign up by the September 30th deadline. Then they just need to remember later on in the year, if they change their mind, decide that they want to be in ARC, they would need to call their crop insurance agent and withdraw from SCO. Recently, USDA announced counties that were available for CRP Conservation Reserve Program emergency haying and grazing. There are 25 Oklahoma counties that are part of this. What it means is producers can hay the land until August 31st. One cutting, the hay cannot be sold. Producers can graze the land until September 30th. So we're coming up on those deadlines, but if producers are interested in CRP emergency grazing, they need to contact their local FSA agent before doing so. Another program that was authorized in the 2014 Farm Bill are cotton transition assistance payments. Those are payments that are similar to direct payments in the last Farm Bill and are only available to cotton producers with cotton-based acres for the 2014 crop year, possibly the 2015. Enrollment for the Cotton Transition Assistance Program began in August and goes through October 7th. So producers with cotton-based acres need to go into their FSA office and enroll for the Cotton Transition Assistance payments.
Had to come all the way to Norman this week to find Kim Anderson here at the National Weather Center for the Ag Weather Symposium. We'll talk to you more about that next week. But for right now, Kim, I really want to focus in on this relationship between canola and wheat in rotation. There really are some advantages we're finding here in the state.
I think there's some pretty strong advantages, and probably the best one is cleaning up the field. To export Oklahoma wheat, we've got to have a good, clean wheat. That's a wheat that's free of dockage, it's free of foreign materials, and so we can maintain that demand and a good milling quality wheat. One way to do that is crop rotation, and the crop that we can rotate with right now is canola.
All right. Now, anytime we have advantages, we also have disadvantages. What are we finding there?
Well, canola is very good for a crop producer. If we got stocker producers, it does limit grazing. It reduces the grazing on that. Plus, you have higher cost of production for canola, so there is more risk. Now, there's that risk reward return, higher profits with it. But you've got the grazing, the reduction in grazing, and the higher cost.
All right. Now, let's talk about prices. I mean, how does this really work out as we look ahead to 2015?
Well, I think right now we're looking at about $5.80 for wheat prices. That's the Kansas City July minus 50 cents is what you can forward contract for. Research shows that our canola price runs about 50% higher than the wheat. You figure that out, that gives you about, somewhere around $8.75 to $8.80 per bushel for your canola.
All right, so now that's talking for our farmers, but what about our guys who are going to be running cattle on their wheat? Is this really, does the math still work out rotating canola for stockers?
Well, it might not work out as well. That's why prices are going high and going up, and the returns are really good for the stocker operations. However, when the prices start going the other way, where we have a downtrend rather than an uptrend, it might be more profitable to come in with canola rather than the stockers.
All right, Kim Anderson, grain marketing specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Now to the science of soil and how ag students using the latest technology in the field will soon apply what they're learning in the real world. SUNUP intern Jacob Redway has this story.
It's hard to find anything older than dirt, but the practice of grid soil sampling is a relatively new and evolving technology that is changing the way farmers look at soil. To equip the next generation for a career using this technology, Oklahoma State University offers a course in precision agriculture.
So we had this Soil 4213 Precision Ag class out here today on one of SST's fields doing some grid soil sampling. Basically, this is going to be a start to finish program where they come out, they collect the soil samples, we're going to run them through the soil testing lab at Oklahoma State, and then we're going to have that data and bring it back out here and look at making prescription maps and how we send those to the application vehicles.
We've always wanted to do something like this in collaboration with OSU and work something where we can bring the students out here and map out and pull some soil samples. We're working on getting other layers as well, but we definitely wanted to get it worked out where we could do some soil sampling today, and that's what we did, showing the kids the technology.
The course teaches students how to use GPS software to collect data and then map out sample cores and half-acre grids. The samples are then sent to the Oklahoma State Soil Testing Lab for analysis.
And we'll take the kids through and show them how to take that to the next level at looking at the actual variability of the N, the P, the K, and so on, and then how to put that into Oklahoma State University agronomic logic and create the recommendations. And the bottom line of it is just doing a better job of managing the variability, but you got to collect data to do so.
Right here what we have is an automated probe that would be used by 95% of the consultants, a probe like this, just due to time and effort. These automated probes really speed up the efficiency of consultants and those that are doing grid soil sampling for business.
Jerry May is one of those consultants, and he notes the ever-changing landscape of precision agriculture.
It's been probably 20 years ago, grid sampling was second nature in the 3I states, and it's gradually came down here. There's been a lot of talks of drones flying over your fields, crop scouting your fields. It's amazing how fast it's grown and what the possibilities are in precision agriculture.
This precision ag course is a really fun course for me to teach, but it's really challenging as technology changes, almost a weekly to monthly basis. And I try to keep as many new technologies being presented to the students as possible.
Every one of them, I would imagine, will be going into something in the ag sector, either as agronomists, soil scientists, or something to do in the probably in the service provider market, in the ag retail side of things. And these technologies and things that they're seeing today will be old news in another year's time, but they'll have a foot up on it, knowing how to utilize the technologies as they continue to grow.
For Oklahoma State University, I'm Jacob Redway.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can always find us at sunup.okstate.edu and on social media. I'm Lyndall Stout, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.